As I've already said before, I absolutely adore ENA. Not just out of gender envy or because I am in love with her, but for the riveting story being told through her. After my first theory video on ENA and Mooney's relationship, I not only got to feel a great kinship with other ENA enjoyers, but some of the comments you left on that video got me thinking. Multiple people pointed something out in relation to Temptation Stairway, something that is indicative of more than I initially thought, not just of her emotional state, but of her wish, and how, and more importantly, why, it was potentially twisted. Then that got me to thinking even more, and led me to a pretty interesting revelation about what Temptation Stairway's ending truly means, how Power of Potluck is reframed by it, and why this all means that our original yellow-blue ENA may never appear again. It has been all but verbally confirmed that there is more than one ENA. We even see multiple ENA masks in Alex the Hoarder's pile. Now, what the purpose of ENA as a species has yet to be seen. We don't know if they were soldiers, outdated avatars, or even clones. However, the discrimination that ENA face is quite evident throughout the series. But how does this relate to Temptation Stairway? How does it relate to Dream Barbecue, and why we are undoubtedly following a completely different ENA than we've ever seen before? To answer that, we first have to explain what's going on at the end of Temptation Stairway. To quickly summarize, the episode starts with ENA and Mooney waiting impatiently to see the Great Runus, where Mooney proposes a bet. The first person to reach the Runus has to pay the debts of the other. A strange bet, but ENA is forced into agreement as the Great Runus appears. ENA panics as she hurries toward the lumbering figure, being stopped by NPCs within the blank mannequin labyrinth along the way. And she is much more frazzled than we've ever seen her before, but luckily a swift kick from Mr. Frog here knocks her back into her senses. As the timer runs out and the Great Runus is sucked into this girl's face vortex, ENA finds herself drawn in as well, trapped within a Windows 95-styled room where this character, Ulysses, explains that the door has closed behind her. She then has to make her way through a strange land, complete a few fetch quests, and meets the best character in the series before finding her way to the Great Runus's room. Mooney suddenly appears, at which we are informed that ENA lost the bet and Mooney has already made her wish. ENA begins to turn completely yellow in the face as she shows her displeasure in the wish that Mooney made. And then the episode ends on a comical shake of ENA's head. My initial takeaway was that ENA, having lost the bet and never meeting the Great Runus face to face, meant that she didn't get to make her wish. But what if that's a wrong assumption? What if merely being so close to the Runus's door was enough to grant an unspoken desire she was craving? After all, the bet only stipulated that the first one there had to pay the other's debts. Mooney never said the first one there was the only one who could make a wish. And as far as we know, there's no rule that the Runus only grants one wish per appearance in the outside world either, so it is a rather high likelihood that the Great Runus granted ENA's wish without her even saying it, or that sometime after the credits begin to roll, ENA entered the room of the Great Runus and made her wish there. As seen by the shifting in her face's color, ENA's wish seems to have been something along the lines of wishing to always be happy, or to never be overtaken by her sad side again at the very least. Throughout this episode, we see ENA at arguably the lowest point she has ever been, at multiple times making comments that sound very much like ideation of the life-ending variety.
I can't go on! Please end my suffering! Why is everyone punching me so softly today?
Quit the hitting and finish the job!
Who wouldn't wish for those kinds of thoughts to just go away? For it to be impossible to even think them. If that's the case, we can see the result of her wish in full effect throughout Power of Potluck. Though she sounds happy and the words she speaks are fairly upbeat, she's disconnected, unfulfilled, seeking happiness through outside sources within the play called life, yet never finding satisfaction. Her sad side, acting as a disconnected parasite with a plastered-on smile, spews pseudo-metaphysical nonsense about how fun can be found while ENA clearly suffers. Only at the end, when she has an impromptu therapy session, does she realize that true joy cannot be found in this way. And it is only once she fully accepts that part of herself that she returns to normal, and the floating, super happy blue half flakes away like an old scab.
Every time I acknowledge the enjoyment and pleasure,
And all I got were incomprehensible feelings. And this lousy mask.
Often, the greatest fun can be found in the little moments.
Like, how little they are.
There is no happiness without sadness. There can be no fun without sorrow. If the only thing you allow yourself to feel, that you let others around you see, is a mask of happiness, then that joy grows hollow and loses all meaning. You must allow yourself to take up that bit of extra room that your bigger emotions carry while not letting them totally consume you. In fact, allowing yourself that extra space is what keeps you from succumbing to anxiety and fear. When you let others see you, the real you, the worry of them finding out that you aren't actually the mask you wear will disappear entirely. When ENA finally accepts herself, that is when her wish is actually fulfilled. That is when she becomes whole. Through self-acceptance, she finds the ability to experience the relief that she truly desired. But don't you find it strange that her wish would be granted in such a roundabout way instead of directly? We see the same with Mooney, too. Her wish to be thinner being granted in a way that left her a frightening caricature of not only herself, but also of humanity. A literal husk of her former self being left as the remains she wears like a costume in Power of Potluck. One may assume it was a silly bit of randomness that would be viewed as normal within the strange world ENA lives in. After all, we see so many different forms that people take throughout the series, it wouldn't be that far off. But even ENA, who has traveled through far stranger places and seen arguably more grotesque-looking people unfazed, is incredibly disturbed by her friend's new form. Meaning, Mooney's wish was granted as though through some sort of monkey's paw.
Hey you! While you're sitting there drawing or writing or doing whatever it is with this video playing in the background, I'd really appreciate if you could stop on by and click like and subscribe. Not only does it help out the channel, but it keeps me motivated to keep making videos like this. And don't forget to leave a comment when you're done. Okay, thanks, bye!
Perverted from the original intent and granted in as backwards of a way as possible. Who else do we know that grants wishes in that way? What other being do we know of that, according to myth and legend, tends to grant wishes in a strange and sometimes vindictive way? The Great Runas is the genie of its door. A genie that is powerful enough to leave the dimension behind its door for a short time, and a genie whose door itself is not stationary. We see in Dream Barbecue that the lonely and crowd doors are stationary structures, stuck in the ground and inset in a wall respectively. However, we also see that the horse door seems to not have that issue, only being out of order because it's resting. Potentially because its head is missing, but I digress. It is not unimaginable that a door might be able to move about, or that the genie of such a door would be able to leave it for a short amount of time. So, if the Great Runas is the genie of its door, then where is the door? If you have a keen eye for detail, then you may have already figured out that answer. All doors that we have seen seem to have the same cyan color scheme, usually including accents of white and black within them. Remember back to when the Great Runas was sucked up into a vortex that caught ENA along with it? The little girl whose face becomes that black hole has been a massive mystery in the ENA fandom for years. But with Dream Barbecue's release, I believe that it's safe to say that she is the door. We even have further proof of this when Ulysses states upon meeting us that the divine door has closed, trapping our greedy soul within the residence of the Great Runas. What may have been written off before as philosophical pseudo-speak now has direct lore implications. Interestingly, after learning that she will be trapped within the divine door for the next 10,000 years and basically shrugging it off in order to make her wish,
That's a lot.
ENA is told that
desires are never fulfilled.
Nor quenched.
Just as a genie's wish is never granted in the way that they're desired. But alright, so what? We have a mobile door, a mobile genie, and proof that the wishes they grant are twisted and messed up. We even understand that it's likely not just this specific genie's way of granting wishes either, as Dream Barbecue ENA has to literally die by jumping down a well in order to achieve her wish of stopping the smoke in the human board route. The smoke machine being located in an astral plane of sorts is peculiar, but we know it must be some sort of metaphysical space due to arriving in the same place through the toilet of eternal damnation after the purge event route. This is not ENA's physical body, as evidenced in the fact that she once again has the arm which she gave up before being eaten during the purge event. In truth, ENA is in this liminal space between life and death all the way up until she's reborn through the mannequin at the very end of the game. But to get back on track, ENA's wish and the implications of what happens after. It makes perfect sense with all that we've discussed in mind that we are following an entirely new ENA in Dream Barbecue. After all, Yellow-Blue ENA's story arc is completed. She figured out how to live with both of her halves in harmony, learning that her sadness informs her happiness and that her joy is useless in a prison of its own when forced is everything we've seen ENA's outbursts and emotional state building towards. She has overcome her main struggle that we've witnessed growing throughout each episode. Now, it's Dream Barbecue ENA's turn. It's likely that we'll see her learn what a proper work-life balance is, or even learn how to better channel her guilt or aggression into healthier coping mechanisms that do not involve losing herself in the job. See, happy versus sad is a fairly straightforward yin and yang to decode and even unite, but salesman and meanie are a bit more obscure. Her half that's always trying to work some kind of angle and get something out of others. The salesman side that is a smooth talker and seems to be more palatable to others is, in itself, harmful in a way. You cannot build healthy or meaningful relationships with others when all you see them as is a means to an end or as a resource. It is also not sustainable to your own psyche to think that way all the time. I believe that's why we see the more easy to frustration yet earnest meanie ENA toward the game's end, and why that half is the only one talking when ENA is a husk of her former self. Even if she looks physically more human in the moment, she's missing a large part of who she is. Her harsh attitude is not the detriment others likely see it as. It's just who ENA is, and pretending to be someone else? Putting on her customer service voice 24/7 and never saying no? Only gets her into more trouble. These halves are both parts of her, but they're parts that she will have to figure out how to blend into one fully actualized ENA. Perhaps you could see it as the Japanese concept of the three faces. The first face, you show the world. The second face, you show to your close friends and your family. The third face is one that you never show anyone. ENA's salesman face seems to be her first face, without a doubt. That is one reason why I absolutely adore ENA as a series. I've seen quite a few people who knew nothing of Joel G's art or of the ENA franchise as a whole say that Dream Barbecue is sheer nonsense and that it's thus bad. Specifically, two PNG tubers who were ranting and raving that there's no merit to a world where random things happen randomly and have no bearing on the story come to mind. However, after watching more of their specific playthrough, it just became increasingly obvious that they went into the game and world with cynicism and defeatism. So they in turn had a bad experience while playing it. When you go into something with that mindset, you tend to not pay attention to the way the story is actually being told to you. Yes, you aren't being spoon-fed a narrative like you would in a Pajama Sam game, but there's so much symbolism and even overt storytelling throughout this wacky world that I honestly find it a bit baffling to come out of it with the conclusion that it was meaningless, or that you would cheer for the waste of your time being over. ENA is not a story where random things happen without rhyme or reason, just for the lulz. Sure, you could watch or play ENA content without a critical eye, and just take it as silliness, the same way you could watch something like Meshes of the Afternoon or even Eraserhead just to say, huh, That was weird and pointless. Instead of looking for the feminist overtones or messages of mental health and the cycle of abuse that are so clearly present if you just watch with intent and an analytical eye. But that choice to not look or think any further than above the surface level is the true waste of time. The author did not go to the trouble of telling you that the door was red just to say that the door is red. One could look at any piece of modern art and dismiss it as nonsensical trash if you wanted. But when it comes to ENA, everything within Dream Barbecue has worked to give context to seemingly random happenings in the earlier series, proving that this is a cohesive world with a story it wants to tell. ENA isn't absurdist as many people claim, likely in ignorance of the title. In fact, it's Dadaist. Dadaism is an anti-establishment art movement that came about in 1915 in the context of the Great War, and the earlier anti-art movement. As a post-World War I art form, its main themes are in rejecting artistic norms through chaos and irrationality. Absurdism, on the other hand, is rooted in existentialism. It seeks to explore human absurdity in an indifferent universe, where Dadaism challenges societal conventions and truths with provocative and nonsensical art. Absurdism delves into the meaninglessness of existence and human angst. While there is certainly an amount of angst present in ENA's backstory as we work to uncover it, ENA herself shows that existence is anything but meaningless. Through her struggles to stay on task and her desire to find her place in a world that treats her poorly, her mere presence as an ENA who takes her job seriously seems to be an anti-establishment statement in its own right. And wouldn't it be a terrible life to have your mere existence itself viewed as a political stance? I am so excited to see more of this game and of ENA's story, and I am equally excited for the idea that I might be able to put more pieces of this puzzle together just by replaying the game and dissecting every little part of it. What do you think, though? What theories do you have about ENA? Do you agree that the Great Runus is the genie and that the little girl is the divine door? Do you think ENA really is absurdism instead of Dadaism? How do you think ENA and Mooney escaped the Runus' home when the next door opening wasn't slated for another 10,000 years? I mean, watching speedruns of Dream Barbecue, it sure seems like most doors have hidden entrances and exits. With the way Mooney showed up at the end of Temptation Stairway as though she'd found some sort of shortcut, I would not doubt that the two of them could have used the same no-clip route to escape. Or, you know, maybe they just live there now? The outside environment within Power of Potluck sure looks different than the outside all of their other previous adventures took place in. Who knows? What I know, however, is that it has been a while since our last fan art showcase, so how about a long overdue whatchamacallit fan art feature? First up, we have a minifigure made by Crossline Animator. This little clay figurine features my cute face stickers, my signature dino hoodie, and a pair of beautifully painted eyes that I just cannot stop looking at. I love that you got all of my different colored hair spikes, along with keeping the signature brown shoes. It's also pretty funny that I'm just standing there, A-posing. I love it. Next up is this really cool piece of art by Kiryu Makoto in a sort of Jet Set Radio style. I also kind of look like a JoJo here, which I think is really cool. I adore the fact that you cut off the top of my sleeves and just left the bottom colored parts as these sort of leg warmers for my forearms. It's so cute. And last but most definitely not least, we have this tarot card made by Sleepy FC. Here, they've depicted me as the child of sunlight with some cute kitty cat ears while holding up a sun. They even included meanings for the card, showing the upright position means innocence, bringer of joy and luck, and the reversed side showing naivety, sadness, and as a jinx. Very, very cool and useful as a tarot card, honestly. I hope you make a full deck of YouTuber tarot cards. That would be so cool. Join the Discord to post into our fan art channel, or just tag me with whatchamart on Zitter and Blue Sky and even Tumblr to have your work featured in one of my future videos. Thank you so much for getting this far in the video. Just like I want to say thank you to my Patreon supporters. I couldn't make these without you guys, so I really appreciate it. At our brother, sibling, sister tier, we have Viri, Miss Mercuriel, Ash Valentine, and Box Kit. At our mommies, daddies, and guardians tier, we have Mary and Kai. And at our gods, goddesses, and deities tier, we have Agent Ness and Gods and Punks. Join the Patreon to get early updates on videos, scripts for videos, podcast versions of videos, you know, sans the music and sound effects and everything, art, and exclusive writing. I hope you guys have an absolutely scrabdangulous day. I love you very, very much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, that looks disgusting on the waveforms.